Three's the Charm by MissCHSparkles. Chapter 8. Hermione's POV. Hermione stared at the letters for a few minutes before she put Ron's on the bed and carefully opened Harry's letter. It started off by saying if she received this letter, she'd clearly gone back in time. It also stated he'd sent Hedwig to Ron's first, and it should be obvious whether he had gone back as well. This made Hermione smile. Ron had definitely gone back in time, and she was very glad. Harry had gone on to say that he was just going to hang out at Privet Drive. He didn't want to cause any trouble with anyone, so he'd only see her and Ron on September the 1st. Hermione had expected that, so it didn't bother her, and she quickly moved on. Harry told her he was going to spend the summer studying and trying to get to know his cousin. She was mildly surprised at that, but it was a good idea for him to try. It would certainly make his summer holidays a lot easier if he got along with his cousin. Harry advised they wait to have a big discussion when they were all together, because with only one owl, it would take a long time sending letters back and forth between 3 people. He did add they could all make up some lists so that they would know what they wanted to talk about once they did actually meet up. "That's actually a good idea," she said to herself. She would enjoy doing that. Getting your thoughts down on paper was always a good idea. Harry did mention she had the option of opting out, but she more or less skipped over that part. She knew that Harry was just trying to be noble, but there was no way she was quitting. Even though they'd been through a lot of bad times, and there had been moments she felt like giving up, she knew, overall, she didn't want that. She wanted to be Harry and Ron's friend, and help them get rid of Voldemort once and for all. The rest of the letter was quite general. She suspected he'd written a pretty similar one to Ron. That didn't matter. What was important was that they'd established contact and could go from there. They would all use this summer to take a real break, mentally recover from all they had seen and experienced. Only when they were back together would they get back into things. She finished reading Harry's letter and, after carefully putting it on the bed, picked up Ron's. She remembered him kissing her and shivered. What would his letter contain? Trying to contain her nerves, she slowly broke the seal and opened his letter. "Dear Hermione, I hope you're doing okay. Must be great seeing your parents again. I know it's been really great seeing my family again. Especially Fred." She smiled sadly at the letter. Poor Ron. "I actually freaked out a little when I woke up. I couldn't believe I was back and stuff. Mum and Dad just think I had a bad dream, so it's okay. Everyone else seems to believe it, and they all forgot it in time, probably. I won't, though." "Of course you won't," Hermione whispered. Who could ever forget that? "Doesn't matter. He's alive, and that's what counts. Anyway, I got a letter from Harry, so he's okay. He's actually planning to make friends with that overgrown whale, Dudley. Can you believe that? What's next? We're all best pals with Malfoy? Ha!" Hermione chuckled. That was admittedly hard to imagine. But it would be nice if they weren't all enemies this time, and she would definitely put that on a list. Not having to worry about Draco Malfoy would certainly take a weight off of her mind. She gave Crookshanks a little tickle under his chin before continuing to read. "Harry sent me some money so I can get myself a proper wand. Don't worry, he thought of a good story for how I got it." Hermione was impressed as she read through just what Harry's plan was. It was very well thought out. Ron's parents were much less likely to question Muggle money than Galleons. It really would be good if Ron got a new wand. She'd almost completely forgotten about that. Perhaps she could try and write a little journal of all the adventures over the years, just to ensure she didn't forget anything important. "I can't wait to get my own wand. I might even end up being one of the top students." Hermione could tell Ron was joking with that last point, but she thought he might actually be right. After all, they were pretty much NEWT students redoing first year. That should put them quite far ahead of their fellow classmates. Even if they held back, she'd be very much surprised if the three of them weren't the three top students. It wasn't arrogant, just simple fact. And it would be nice to not have the boys nagging her so much. Although they probably would anyway, she thought fondly. I've been doing a little studying. Not as much as you and Harry, obviously, but a little. Actually feels nice to relax and go over stuff, which did surprise me. Got a bit of a Mickey from Fred and George, though. Gits. Hermione smiled, glad Ron was comfortable around his brothers again. Or was at least getting there. Then Percy spotted me and started lecturing me about making a good start, blah, blah, blah. Just as I remember him, but this time, I'll keep an eye on him. I'm not letting him walk out on us again. No way. She hoped Ron could do this. No family should be torn apart by jealousy and misunderstanding. I don't think there's too much else to say at the moment, except I won't reveal who that rat is yet. It's bloody awful no one is there, but I can't do anything without people thinking I'm crazy. As soon as we're back at Hogwarts, we're coming up with something to get rid of him. I think that should be first on our list. She nodded. That was perfectly reasonable. And also it would mean that an innocent man in Azkaban would be released. It would be strange to see Sirius again, but nice. She hadn't really gotten to know him very well last time. Obviously he spent as much time with Harry as possible, but he seemed to get on better with Ron than her. It didn't overly bother her. Just one of those things. And speaking of lists, I've started the one Harry wants us to do, but I've also done one especially for you. For me? She repeated out loud in surprise. She hadn't been expecting that. Hope you like it. Not too stupid or anything. By the looks of it, Ron had struggled to write this part. There was ink everywhere, although she could still read it. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to seeing you. And Harry. Take care of yourself. I should be able to send you a couple more letters before we get to Hogwarts. Hope you enjoy studying. I know you'll be doing a lot of that. This made her laugh before she saw the very last part of his letter. By the looks of it, he had hesitated before finally going for it. Love, Ron. Oh, Ron, she whispered, a hand on her heart as it thudded. He really was maturing at long last. She eagerly went for his list, wanting to know the things he said. Ron's list of things to do with Hermione. Number 1. Don't wait 7 years to kiss Hermione. Number 2. Ask her to the ball before anyone does, especially dumb Crumb. Number 3. Support SPEW. See, I didn't write spew. Fully. Number 4. Never ever leave her again. Number 5. Punch gets like Malfoy if he even looks at her funny. Number 6. Make sure that bloody basilisk doesn't get anywhere near her. Number 7. Never let anyone talk down to her because she's smarter than them. Number 8. Learn Muggle stuff. Number 9. Do my homework. Sometimes. Number 10. Teach Hermione to fly. She didn't know what to say. What he'd written was just so sweet. This parchment didn't have any stains, but she suspected he'd written several copies before coming up with this final one. The last one confused her for a moment, before realising that Ron was trying to be nice, as she'd never been fully comfortable on brooms. Plus, it would probably be quite romantic to have a broom ride together. The young girl smiled. Maybe she really had found her Prince Charming after all. Ron's POV. Mum! Dad! I won! Ron called joyfully as he rushed into the kitchen, waving a handful of banknotes. Won what, dear? His mum asked absent-mindedly, probably thinking he meant a game of Quidditch or something along those lines. It was now 4 days after he'd woken up in his bed, and he'd finally decided to reveal the money. The day after he had first woken up, he had gone for a short walk down to the local Muggle village, using the excuse he wanted to stretch his legs. He'd hung around for a little while before returning, knowing he just had to wait a little longer before he got his hands on his own wand. "The competition!" he said excitedly, rushing up to her and waving the notes at her. "The chess one! I entered it the other day and I won!" What? She said in confusion, pausing in her stirring of a savoury sauce and staring at him. "You won?" "Yeah," Ron said, chest puffed out with pride. "Mum, I think I've won quite a lot. We can count it out and see." But how?" she exclaimed, as his dad came through to see what the fuss was about. His dad was having a half day, as things were so slow at the office at the moment. But once they were back at school, he'd be working his arse off. "You remember when I was in the village the other day?" Ron said breathlessly. Well, there was this competition to see what was the quickest way to checkmate. I entered it, and I just found out I won." "Really, son?" his dad questioned, coming over to Ron and his wife, staring at the money. "You've really won some money?" "Yeah," Ron said proudly. "It's Muggle money, but we can get that changed, can't we?" "Of course," Arthur said distractedly, as he took the money and examined it. This looks like it's quite a lot of money." "I know! It's great, isn't it?" Ron said eagerly, praying it wouldn't be questioned too much. "Of course, dear. But how did you know you'd won?" Molly asked, and Ron quickly said, "I went back to the village, just for a look, and I thought I'd check out about the competition. I didn't expect to actually win." "How did you enter?" Arthur now questioned, and Ron said quickly, "Well, I was walking along the road. I found a bit of Muggle money. I think they called it a 50-pence piece or something. And when I got to the village and found out about this competition, I had enough for it. Can you believe it?" "It's wonderful, Ron," Molly cooed, ruffling his hair. "I'm sure we can exchange it for galleons. Can't we, Arthur?" "I imagine so," he said thoughtfully. "After all, Muggleborns must have some way of getting a hold of galleons." "And I can get a wand!" Ron said excitedly. "Oh, a wand?" his father repeated. "Yeah," Ron said, his tone becoming more serious. "I want my own wand, Dad. And not just Charlie's old wand. Please?" His parents stared at him for a moment, before smiling. "Well, if we have enough galleons after exchanging this money, I'm sure there's no reason why we can't do just that," Arthur said with a smile. "Is that what you really want, Ron?" Ron nodded. "I want to do well in school," he said softly, "and I need my own wand for that." That did it for his mum, who immediately looked proud. "Of course we'll get you a new wand, Ronnie. I could do with a bit of shopping. We'll go on Thursday." "Great!" Ron said, feeling very pleased with how well that went. "I'll look after this for you, shall I?" his father offered, and Ron nodded. That was fine with him. Things were starting to look up. Harry's POV. "Now these," Harry began, "are chocolate frogs." It had been a few days since Harry had first attempted a connection with Dudley, and so far it was going well. Dudley didn't really want to talk, but Harry was fine with that. If they could at least reach a comfortable silence and part amiably at the end of the summer, Harry would be satisfied. Dudley's eyes were currently lit up. He loved chocolate, but Harry knew he needed to warn his cousin about the frogs. "Okay, now it's just chocolate," he assured Dudley. "They're not real frogs, but they are enchanted to hop around a bit." Dudley stared at him aghast. Harry quickly said, "It's just for a bit of excitement. It won't hurt you. It's just chocolate shaped like frogs, which move around a bit. But you can still eat them. Here, I'll show you, okay?" The large blonde boy nodded dumbly, and Harry unwrapped one. The frog promptly hopped out of his hand and across the bed. Dudley squeaked and flinched backwards as it headed towards him. Harry reached forward and grabbed it before bringing it to his mouth and taking a big bite. "See?" he said in his mouth full of chocolate. "No problem." His cousin didn't look so sure, but as Harry continued to munch, the smell of chocolate became too much, and he grabbed a packet. Slowly, he opened it and stared at his frog that chose to remain still for a moment before doing a humongous leap and landing on Dudley's t-shirt. Dudley did goggle at it. He seemed torn between screaming and just staring at the enchanted frog currently hanging onto him. "Just eat it. It's only chocolate," Harry reminded, finishing his own frog. Dudley swallowed and then, in a fast movement, seized the frog and sank his teeth into its body. His body sagged with relief as no frog guts oozed out, and it was just delicious chocolate. He happily munched on the rest of it before greedily eyeing the other chocolate frogs. Harry chuckled before gesturing. "On you go, Dud?" Dudley delightedly took another and opened it. To Harry's satisfaction, Dudley did allow the frog a few hops before eating it. His cousin was slowly becoming relaxed about magic, at least as far as wizard's sweets were concerned. Even better, Dudley hadn't breathed a word about this to Uncle Vernon or Aunt Petunia. If they could just keep this up, Harry had high hopes. "What's that?" Dudley said in his blunt way, pointing at a book. Ever since he had returned, Harry had basically studied, gone for long walks, or did chores before Dudley had appeared. He had been engrossed in a textbook. It was Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and Harry had already written a few choice comments in them. Honestly, he couldn't resist, especially the bit for dangerous creatures you needed a permit, and he gleefully wrote that clearly. Hagrid hadn't read this. It was silly, but it passed the time. "Oh, that's one of my books," Harry said, glancing at the tome in question. "It's about magical creatures and, well, where to find them. Got everything from dragons to mermaids." "They exist?" Dudley exclaimed, amazed as Harry nodded. "What about werewolves?" Harry grinned and nodded before saying, "I've met one." "You have not," Dudley said, and Harry simply smiled. "I have. You meet all sorts in the wizarding world. Of course it wasn't a full moon, so he wasn't transformed, but I still saw one." "What about vampires?" Dudley demanded, and again Harry nodded. "Zombies?" Harry tried not to grimace as he remembered the living dead who had attacked him and Dumbledore. Instead, he simply nodded and Dudley's eyes went wide. "Whoa!" Dudley couldn't help but exclaim, and Harry grinned. "And all those are at your school?" Dudley said in awe. No," Harry corrected. "We're generally just taught by other wizards and witches, although there are things like centaurs and unicorns in the forest next to the school. Things like werewolves and vampires tend to be shunned by Wizarding Society." "Why?" Dudley asked, confused. Surely, if anything accepted things like that, it would be wizards. "Because the wizarding world isn't the most tolerant," Harry said with a sad smile. "I mean, for instance, while most wizards don't mean muggles, normal people, any harm, they don't think much about your overall intelligence." As Dudley stared, Harry explained, "Because muggles don't use magic, and because the majority of wizards don't understand a single thing about technology, they think of muggles as being rather dim to the point of stupid. See, while it's the goal of the Ministry of Magic to keep muggles from finding out about magic, most wizards don't seem to appreciate the reason muggles don't know about magic is because of the Ministry's efforts. They laugh over a muggle's confusion when something happens they can't explain, because it's the result of magic. But said muggle doesn't know about that. Wizards constantly lament the fact that muggles don't use magic and ponder how they manage without it." Harry paused for a breath before saying, "You know what wizards do instead of a telephone?" Dudley shook his head. "Well, they throw magic powder into a fire and call out the name of the house they want to talk to and stick their head into the fire." The eyes on his cousin nearly popped out of his head as he said, "That's not true." "It is," Harry chuckled. "To them, that's perfectly normal. They just chat away with their heads stuck in the fire and just pull out when they're finished. If they want to visit properly, they actually step into the fire and get transported to their friend's fireplace." "Why don't they just use a telephone?" Dudley questioned, still looking shocked. "Well, partly because magic and technology don't go together well," Harry explained. but also because they just don't get technology. They think it's weird, and also some wizards don't like muggles, so they think using technology is beneath them. That's stupid, Dudley said contemptuously. Well, they are ignorant, Harry conceded. It would be much better if wizards took more time to find out about muggles, and how they do things. I'm afraid I don't know how that can be changed, but hopefully one day it can. Hopefully me and my friends can help change that, Harry thought to himself. Dudley was frowning. These issues were a little too much for his 11-year-old mind. Harry changed the subject quickly. You don't have to worry about that, Dud. I don't know how many wizards you'll end up meeting, but probably not that many. Dudley nodded in acceptance. Harry was about to ask if there was anything else his cousin wanted to know about, when the doorbell suddenly rang. Harry looked up, wondering who that was. I'll get it, he said, knowing Dudley wouldn't be very keen to go all the way downstairs only to come back up again. Dudley just shrugged, eagerly helping himself to another chocolate frog. Harry made his way downstairs, feeling quite good. This summer was a lot more pleasant this time around, and he had a feeling it would only get better. He straightened his baggy t-shirt as he reached the front door and opened it. His jaw dropped as he came face to face with Professor McGonagall, who was standing impatiently on the front step. She was wearing a long, dark coat which barely disguised the fact that she was a witch. Her hair was up in its usual tight bun, with not a single strand out of place. Underneath her long coat, she was wearing a witch's tunic, and, fondly, Harry noted it had a tartan shawl across the shoulder and around the waist. "Good afternoon," she said briskly, as Harry continued to gape. "Mr. Potter, I presume?" "Yes," Harry said, managing to find his voice. Are you from, Hogwarts?" "I am indeed," she said in a no-nonsense tone before asking, "May I come in?" "Of course, Professor," Harry said dutifully, stepping aside and letting her in before closing the door. He led her through to the sitting room and said, would you like a cup of tea?" "That would be very nice. Thank you," she said, taking a seat in her armchair. "Is your uncle and cousin home?" "Only my cousin," Harry replied. "My aunt's out with her friends, and my uncle's at work. He should be back at about 5. I wasn't expecting you so soon, Professor." "Yes, I suppose I am a little early," she conceded, "but I do not like to be late for anything." Harry nodded. That was Professor McGonagall. Quickly, he said, "I'll just make the tea. Will you be okay here, Professor?" "I believe so, Mr. Potter. Thank you," she said with a small smile. She seemed to appreciate his manners. Harry smiled and headed quickly into the kitchen, where he raced to put on the tea. While the kettle was boiling, he took out some of the nice plates, which he placed on Petunia's special biscuits and delicate cakes. These she saved for her ladies and other important guests, but they weren't used that often. Dudley usually got to them right before they were past their best, and Aunt Petunia simply made more. He was just pouring some milk into a delicate little jug when the kettle sang, indicating it was ready. He poured the tea into a pretty teapot and carefully placed it on the tray laden with cup and saucer, plates of little biscuits and cakes, a sugar bowl and a milk jug. He picked up the tray with great care, made his way into the hallway, where he paused to yell upstairs, "Oi, Dudley! Get down here a moment! I've got cake!" That naturally got a response, and a moment later, Dudley was peering out from Harry's room. Harry grinned up at him and said, "Come on, Dud, you can get it in the sitting room." "Is that your cousin?" Professor McGonagall asked, as Harry delicately placed the tray on the little table in front of her. "Yeah, that's Dudley," Harry confirmed before pouring her a cup of tea. "How do you like your tea, Professor?" "Just a little milk and sugar," she said, clearly listening to the sounds of Dudley thumping downstairs. Harry just handed her a cup when Dudley entered. His cousin hadn't really been in a rush to get into the sitting room. His eyes widened when he saw Professor McGonagall, and even he could tell she was a witch. Taking a sip of her tea, she said without preamble, "Mr. Dudley Dursley, I take it?" He stammered, shooting a wide-eyed look at Harry. "It's okay, Dudley," Harry said soothingly, grabbing his cousin's arm and dragging him over to the sofa. She's from Hogwarts. She's here to help you and your dad. Go and have a cake. That is why I am here, she confirmed as Dudley shakily took a cake to steady his nerves. My name is Professor McGonagall, and I'm going to be your cousin Harry's transfiguration teacher at Hogwarts. I should be able to easily take care of your little problem in a matter of moments. You can get rid of it? Dudley questioned in a slight croak. I can, she said with assured confidence. If you like, once I've finished this cup of tea, I can get rid of it for you. Harry gave Dudley a nudge, causing his cousin to say, yeah. Harry muttered thank you, which Dudley automatically repeated out loud. You're very welcome, she said, eyeing them both beadily. Just how did you get your tail, Mr. Dursley? Harry wants me to tell you he did it, Dudley blurted out, and Harry mentally smacked his forehead. Smooth one, Dud. Oh, does he? Professor McGonagall said sternly. So who was it that gave you that tail? Harry wanted to answer, but the cat was out of the bag now. Besides, she was looking at Dudley, and he knew she wouldn't appreciate him interrupting. That giant guy who came to get Harry. Dudley mumbled. She looked too severe for him to disobey. He got mad because of what Dad said. Uncle Vernon called Professor Dumbledore a crackpot old fool, Harry explained helpfully. My uncle's not very keen on me going to Hogwarts, so he had a bit of an argument with Hagrid. Hagrid is very protective of the headmaster, Professor McGonagall confirmed before asking Harry. Why were you trying to pretend it was you who hexed your cousin and uncle? Hagrid said he could get into trouble, Harry said softly. He didn't mean to hurt them. He just lost his temper. And I didn't want him to get sacked or anything. He's not going to, is he? I do not think so, she said kindly, with a very small smile. She seemed very impressed that Harry was trying to protect the gamekeeper. However, I will need to have a word with Hagrid about controlling himself. Thank you, Harry said with a grin, as Dudley just watched with a bemused expression. You're welcome, she said primly, taking another sip of tea, before looking at Dudley. If you pull your trousers down enough for me to see the tail, I will be able to get rid of it. Will it hurt? Dudley questioned. Certainly not, she said briskly, taking out her wand from inside her coat. Come along now. Dudley slowly got up and fumbled with his trousers, with Harry pointedly looking away. He had no desire to see his cousins behind, even the very top. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see Dudley trembling all over. He really was terrified. Before Harry could say anything, there was a flash and a yelp, and he turned around to see Dudley clutching his bottom. There, that's that taken care of, the teacher said calmly, tucking away her wand again. You okay, Dad? Harry asked as Dudley hesitantly rubbed his behind. It's gone, he said in amazement. You did it? Of course. Of course, she said, taking another sip of tea. As Harry grinned. Now all they had to do was deal with his uncle. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed this one. I really love this. Harry's stepping in to almost be a big brother to Dudley. That's really nice. And that little list that Ron sent Hermione. I am a Hermione shipper, always have been, and I honestly see their arguments as ways of flirting. They just don't know how to handle the fact that they like each other. But now they've had that time to mature and a chance to start over, they're just starting right off. I love that. And that bit with Ron and his parents. Oh, I love how Ron is written in this. I know I keep saying it, but man, I love this boy. And this fic does him justice. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.